What happens when the lifeblood of a superpower begins to run dry? In Russia, the world's second-largest exporter of oil, fires are raging in refineries, fuel prices are spiking, and pumps across the nation are running dry. What started as a ripple effect from war and sanctions has now spiraled into a full-blown crisis. This is the story of Russia's fuel disaster. A spiral of burning refineries, empty pumps, and a nation teetering on the edge of economic chaos. Stay with us as we uncover how this crisis erupted, why Russia, despite sitting on massive oil reserves, can't keep its own citizens supplied, and what it means for the rest of the world. For decades, Russia has stood as one of the world's great energy superpowers. With the vast frozen fields of Siberia beneath its feet and an intricate network of pipelines stretching thousands of miles across Eurasia, the Kremlin transformed oil and gas into more than just resources. They became instruments of influence, tools of economic stability, and weapons of political leverage. Energy is Russia's true currency. While other countries diversify their economies across technology, manufacturing, or services, Moscow has leaned heavily on oil and gas revenues to fuel its state budget. In some years, more than 40% of government revenue has come directly from the sale of hydrocarbons. That's not just income, it's survival. Every hospital built, every pension paid, every tank manufactured in one way or another was financed by oil and gas money. And with that revenue came power. Europe, especially before 2022, depended heavily on Russian pipelines. Nations like Germany, Italy, and Hungary were tied to Moscow by invisible cords of energy dependence. When Russia wanted to exert pressure, it didn't always need armies or threats. All it had to do was adjust the flow of natural gas in winter or tweak export quotas, and entire economies trembled. This was the energy weapon, subtle, quiet, and devastatingly effective. But the Russian energy story isn't just about exports. At home, Moscow used subsidized fuel prices to maintain domestic stability. Cheap gasoline and heating oil were part of an unspoken social contract between the Kremlin and the Russian people. In exchange for political loyalty, the state would guarantee energy abundance. Citizens living in remote villages of Siberia or massive cities like Moscow rarely thought twice about whether fuel would be available. For decades, the pumps never ran dry. This is what makes the current crisis so shocking. A country with the world's 8th largest oil reserves and one of the most sophisticated pipeline networks in existence now finds itself unable to keep its own gas stations stocked. To outsiders, it seems almost absurd. How can an energy giant run out of fuel? The answer lies in the fragility of a system overly dependent on a single commodity. Russia's economy was never truly diversified. It was built like a pyramid resting on one narrow point, oil and gas. When that base is shaken by sanctions, sabotage, or falling global demand, the entire pyramid wobbles. The image of an energy colossus starts to look more like a house of cards. Russia still possesses the crude. That's not the issue. The problem is the conversion, turning raw oil into refined products like gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. Without functioning refineries and without access to the foreign technology that once supported them, Russia's energy advantage becomes an illusion. Citizens cannot fuel their cars with barrels of crude. Soldiers cannot drive tanks with unrefined oil. Airlines cannot fly planes without jet fuel. Since 2022, mysterious fires have ripped through Russia's refineries. Some were blamed on drone attacks from Ukraine, others on simple neglect inside aging Soviet-era infrastructure. But the result is the same: smoldering plants, destroyed output, and billions in losses. Russia refines over 5 million barrels of oil per day. When a single refinery goes offline, it can slash regional fuel supply overnight. Multiply that by multiple sites targeted in quick succession, and you have entire cities left scrambling. These attacks aren't just accidents or isolated incidents. They're part of a larger strategy to choke Russia's ability to convert crude into usable fuel. Crude alone doesn't run your car or heat your home. Refined products like gasoline and diesel do. Without them, the system collapses. Imagine driving to your local gas station, only to find the pumps taped off, the price boards blank, and a line of cars snaking for miles. This is the reality in many Russian towns right now. Farmers complain of not having diesel to run tractors. Trucking companies delay deliveries. Even public transport in some regions has been disrupted. Prices at the pump, once subsidized to keep citizens happy, have shot up in recent months. For a country where car travel connects sprawling, frozen regions, the impact is devastating. Ordinary Russians, who were told the war wouldn't affect them, are now paying the price, literally, and the anger is beginning to bubble. To understand why Russia's refineries are burning, you have to follow the sanctions trail. Since invading Ukraine in 2022, Moscow has faced one of the harshest economic pressure campaigns in modern history. Western allies cut off access to advanced refinery technology, spare parts, and financing. This left Russia patching up decades-old equipment with duct tape, quite literally. Without Western catalysts, compressors, and repair kits, many plants run inefficiently, produce lower-quality fuel, and are more prone to accidents. The irony? Russia can pump oil from the ground, but increasingly can't refine it effectively for its own people. Instead, it ships crude to countries like India and China at discounted prices, while citizens at home scramble for gas. And then, there's the war. Ukrainian drones and sabotage teams have increasingly targeted Russia's refineries, oil depots, and pipelines. Kiev knows that hitting military bases is one thing, but hitting the fuel lifelines cripples Russia's ability to move tanks, planes, and troops. In just 1 month, multiple strikes caused fires that burned for days, slashing output by tens of thousands of barrels daily. This isn't just economic warfare, it's strategic. No fuel, no war machine. And the Kremlin is caught in a bind. Divert precious air defenses to protect oil facilities, or leave cities and front lines exposed. So what's Moscow doing about it? The government has imposed emergency restrictions on fuel exports, hoarding what's left for domestic use. This angers international buyers who once relied on Russian diesel, particularly in Asia and Africa. Authorities are also forcing companies to cap pump prices, but that only creates shortages as suppliers refuse to sell at a loss. It's classic Soviet-style rationing in a 21st century crisis. Behind the scenes, reports suggest black market fuel sales are booming. Farmers and truckers desperate for diesel are paying double the official price in underground markets. The very shadow economy the Kremlin claims to control is now thriving. This crisis isn't just Russia's problem. Global fuel markets are feeling the shockwaves. Diesel prices in Europe and Asia have inched upward as Russia reduces exports. Supply chains already strained face new uncertainty. Countries like India, which import Russian crude, now worry whether refined product exports will slow down. Meanwhile, China has seized the opportunity to demand even deeper discounts. The irony of ironies? The world's so-called energy superpower is both flooding the market with cheap crude and simultaneously struggling to keep its own cars running. The Kremlin has spent years projecting strength, stability, and self-reliance, but burning refineries and empty pumps tell a different story, one of vulnerability. Russian state TV avoids showing the long fuel lines, but social media paints a raw picture of discontent. Russians who once believed Moscow's narrative of endless abundance are now asking, how can we fight a war abroad when we can't fuel tractors at home? This cracks open a dangerous reality for Putin. Economic pain that hits elites is one thing, but when everyday citizens feel it, when truck drivers, farmers, and workers can't access fuel, discontent spreads like wildfire. Let's be clear, Russia isn't about to run out of oil. Its reserves are massive. The real issue is capacity. Without functioning refineries, without parts, without stability, crude oil becomes just black sludge sitting in the ground. Experts warn that if the crisis deepens, Russia could face not just a shortage of fuel, but a collapse in the very infrastructure that powers its economy. Refineries are complex beasts. If they're offline for too long, restarting them can take months, even years. And in a nation where winter temperatures plunge below -30, fuel isn't just convenience, it's survival. So where does this spiral end? There are 3 possible futures. First, temporary relief. Moscow doubles down, throws money at repairs, and cracks down on black markets. Fuel flows, but at a heavy cost. Second, deeper crisis. Drone strikes and sanctions continue, refineries stay offline, and citizens face rationing reminiscent of the Soviet era. Third, global shockwave. If Russia's crisis spreads, global energy markets could spike, creating higher prices worldwide. Whichever path unfolds, one truth remains. Russia's fuel disaster has exposed the fragility of a petrostate built on crude dominance, but unable to refine resilience. Burning refineries, empty pumps, angry citizens. Russia's fuel spiral is more than just an energy crisis. It's a symbol of a nation stretched thin by war, sanctions, and its own ambitions. The superpower of oil is discovering that black gold means little when you can't refine it into survival. As Russia scrambles to contain the flames, the world is left to wonder. Is this the beginning of a fuel collapse that will reshape the balance of global energy? Or just another chapter in the long, painful unraveling of Moscow's power? If you found this deep dive insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And tell us in the comments, do you think Russia can recover from this spiral, or is this the start of an unstoppable collapse?